How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Smith, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. We're back for part 2 in our 3-part series all about letting go. Last week, we talked about letting go of perfectionism, and today we are letting go of people-pleasing. Have you ever felt exhausted trying to make everyone around you happy, only to end up feeling drained and unappreciated? Or maybe you found yourself saying yes when you really wanted to say no. If so, you're not alone, and this episode is for you. So let's explore why letting go of people-pleasing is essential to reclaiming our time, energy, and overall happiness. I remember the first time I started to recognize this pattern of people-pleasing. I had just started with a new company and relocated back to Western New York. I was eager to impress my new boss and colleagues, so I said yes to every project, every after-hours event, and every weekend email. At first, it felt great to be recognized and needed and appreciated, but as months went by, I found myself overwhelmed and starting to feel resentful. One particular weekend stands out. I had plans to do nothing, which in my book, no plans are the best plans, and I was looking forward to recharging. However, at the last minute, a dear colleague asked for my help with an urgent presentation that she needed done by Monday. Of course, without thinking twice, I canceled my recharge weekend and spent the entire weekend working with her. By Sunday night, I was completely drained, and I realized that I had sacrificed my own well-being for someone else's urgency. That entire week, I didn't feel good and ended up the following weekend with a horrible case of strep throat. That was a wake-up call. I understood that constantly putting others' needs before my own was not sustainable, and it was affecting my health. So I had to learn the hard way that my value wasn't tied to how much I could do for others, and that saying no didn't make me a bad person. It's a tricky path, but ultimately it led me to a place of greater peace and calmness. Now, if this is resonating with you, let's talk through a few things you might consider. Now, before we get into this, I want to mention that making any kind of change, you have to recognize and notice things first. And people-pleasing often operates under the radar. It's disguised as kindness or helpfulness. So it's really crucial to just pause and become aware of this people-pleasing tendencies in your life. And I also want to mention that this doesn't mean that you can't be helpful or kind to people. Of course, you want to be helpful and kind to people. It's just that you don't want to overextend your kindness or overextend your helpfulness, so it's at the expense of your own well-being. So let's talk through some common signs to look out for. Number 1 is constantly overcommitting. Do you find your schedule perpetually packed with commitments that you don't really want to keep? People pleasers frequently say yes to requests, even when their plate is already full, which can lead to that resentment and exhaustion. Another sign might be that you feel guilty for prioritizing your own needs. Do you experience guilt when you take time for yourself or you have to say no to others? In my experience, people pleasers often feel almost like it's selfish when they prioritize their own needs. And that can lead to a cycle of self-neglect. And when you don't put yourself and your own needs first, that's again when that burnout can start happening. Another sign is difficulty saying no. So if saying no is a challenge for you, even when you know it's the right thing to do, that might be a sign of being a people pleaser. People pleasers who fear disappointing others or causing conflict often agree to things that they don't have the time or energy for. Now, I have to say, this was especially difficult for me when I started my career coaching practice. In an effort to accommodate everyone's schedules, I found myself agreeing to early morning calls, late night sessions, and even weekend meetings. I wanted to be available whenever my clients needed me. However, this turned out to be a bad decision. I was constantly exhausted and found it difficult to be fully present and engaged during my sessions. My energy levels were depleted, and I realized that my effectiveness as a coach was suffering. I was so focused on pleasing my clients and being there for them that I neglected my own well-being. So eventually, I had to set some boundaries and learn how to say no. This isn't easy, especially when you work for yourself, but I began to prioritize my own energy and scheduled sessions at times when I could be at my best. This shift not only improved my well-being, but also enhanced the quality of my coaching sessions. So clients received better support because I was more energized and focused. By setting these boundaries and valuing my time and energy, I could create a healthier, more sustainable approach to helping others. Another sign is seeking external validation. Do you often look for approval from others for validation? I've seen that people pleasers tend to derive their value from external sources, basing their self-esteem on how much they can do for others. Lastly, avoiding conflict. Are you more likely to agree with others to avoid arguments or disagreements, even if it means compromising your own values? This is a big one for me, and it took me a long time to recognize. So let's recap the 5 signs that we're talking through today. 1 is constantly overcommitting. 2 is feeling guilty for prioritizing your own needs. 3 is difficulty saying no. 4 is seeking external validation. And then 5 is avoiding conflict. So take a moment to reflect on your own interactions and then consider whether any of these signs resonate with you. The idea is that identifying these patterns can help you understand how ingrained people-pleasing might be for you. So it's important to acknowledge it without judgment and know that awareness is the first step toward change. One of the ways that I talked about a little bit earlier to begin to move out of people-pleasing mode is to set healthy boundaries. I talk about this a lot with my beloved clients and community. What this means is really being honest about your capacity and what you're willing to take on. So I want to talk through a couple steps, practical tips to help you maintain healthy boundaries. Number 1 is to assess your capacity. Evaluate your capacity by examining your current commitments. And when I say capacity, I'm thinking about your energy and your time. Just because you have time doesn't mean you have the energy. So do you have room to take on more, or do you need to scale back? Being honest with yourself when it comes to time and energy and what you can realistically handle is the first step in setting boundaries. Number 2 is to clearly communicate these boundaries. You must be confident in your communication. For example, if a colleague asks you to take on an additional project that you don't have the bandwidth for, you might say, "Hey, I'd love to help, but I'm currently at full capacity with my existing projects. Thanks so much for thinking of me. I'll let you know if something changes." Clear communication helps others understand your limits, and it reduces the likelihood of any misunderstandings. And again, you don't have to be mean about any of this. Just politely suggest that you're at capacity. It's completely acceptable. The third way that you can set healthy boundaries is to consider time borders. So, what I mean by this is allocating specific time for your work projects, for your family, and for your rest. So, for example, you might decide that evenings after 5:30 are reserved for family and friends, and you're not going to check your work emails during that period. You can let folks know that you will get back with them first thing in the morning when you're back online. Sticking to these time borders can help you maintain a healthy lifestyle so you have time to rejuvenate in between work projects. Another idea here is to use technology wisely. This is a big one because it can take over. So you want to leverage technology to help enforce your boundaries. One thing that I've noticed a lot of my colleagues and friends are doing is adding do not disturb mode on their phone outside of work hours. Personally, I removed the email app completely off my phone because it was draining my energy when I really wanted to be present with my friends and family. You could use calendar apps to block off time and set reminders to take breaks. I'm a big fan of scheduling time blocks, time to think, so you don't have meeting after meeting. And that allows you to breathe and spend time actually working versus participating in meeting after meeting. So these small actions with technology can help you stay committed to your boundaries. And lastly, be consistent. Consistency is really critical to maintaining boundaries. Once you've set a boundary, you want to stick to it as much as possible. This consistency reinforces your limits to others, and it helps you build the habit of respecting your own needs and putting yourself first. Now, of course, you can always reflect and adjust. Periodically checking in on your boundaries is a great way just to see how things are working for you, not working for you, and making adjustments accordingly. Over time, setting boundaries will become more natural and much less intimidating. You'll begin to see these positive effects on your well-being, your productivity, and your relationships. And remember, setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out or not being helpful or not being kind. It's about creating a sustainable way to engage with others while honoring your own energy, your own needs, and limitations. Another strategy to begin to let go of people-pleasing mode is what I call the hell yes or no strategy. I learned this from a colleague who had read the book by Derek Sivers, and he popularized the concept in his different writings and talks, emphasizing the importance of committing only to things that genuinely inspire and excite you and saying no to everything else. Now, this might feel or sound extreme, but the idea here is to use it as a guideline. Of course, there's always going to be things in life that we don't want to say yes to, that we are obligated to, but this is a good guideline to use in your professional life. The hell yes or no strategy simplifies decision-making by encouraging you to commit only to opportunities and requests that genuinely excite you. So here's what I mean. Your answer should be no if you're not enthusiastic about something. This is going to help you focus on what truly matters to you. For me, I can feel this in my body. Just yesterday, I got an email request from a local college to partner on a project, and it was a hell yes. I was super excited to partner with this organization and work together with them on a project for their students. My body was excited. I felt the flutter in my belly, and I couldn't wait to respond. Now, on the opposite side of that, when things come through that I'm not super excited about, it's almost like my body just feels heavy, or I'll look at something and immediately close it, thinking it's just going to go away. But that's a reaction that's saying, hell no, I don't want to do that. Sometimes if I don't have an immediate reaction, I'll pause for 24 hours. If I feel indifferent about it, I'll just pause before responding, think about it, and then make the decision. An idea here is that you might want to imagine yourself in the future. So ask yourself, if I say yes and this begins tomorrow, how am I going to feel? And then you can assess your excitement level from there. So when you're faced with a new request or opportunity, ask yourself, does this make me say hell yes? And if not, it's likely not worth your time. Sometimes when we are feeling really overwhelmed with the day-to-day, it's hard to want to say yes to anything, let alone a hell yes. So if you're in that stage, you might consider evaluating the decision on whether or not it's in alignment with your heart-based intentions. So consider how the opportunity aligns with your long-term goals and values. And if it doesn't contribute to your growth or happiness, you might consider saying no. Now, let's briefly talk about saying no, because I know this is really hard, especially for heart-based professionals, but it is essential. And you can use simple, polite, assertive language and politely say no. Something like, thank you, but I'll have to pass as it doesn't align with my priorities right now. Very polite and simple. I know how hard this is. I've dedicated an entire episode to saying no because I know how hard it is. So I'm going to make sure that we add a link to that episode in the show notes. Finally, by focusing on what excites you, you're going to increase your energy and enthusiasm. You'll reduce overwhelm and burnout. You'll free up time for other things and improve your overall fulfillment and satisfaction. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one more thought. Be kind to yourself. Letting go of people-pleasing is a process. You will learn from each decision you make. Be kind to yourself and acknowledge your progress, no matter how small. Now it's time for our tiny action, 5 minutes to flourish. This week, I want you to take 5 minutes to reflect on a recent situation where you said yes, but you really wanted to say no. You said yes because you wanted to be helpful or kind to the person asking for the request. Write down how it made you feel and what you might do differently next time. This simple exercise will help you become more aware of your people-pleasing tendencies and start making positive changes. In summary, today we explored the importance of letting go of people-pleasing, recognizing its signs, setting clear boundaries, and using the hell yes or no strategy. Remember, letting go of people-pleasing is a process, and it's crucial to be kind to yourself along the way. That's a wrap for this week, my friends. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and if you did, please consider recommending it to a friend. Stay tuned for the final part of our Letting Go series, where we're going to discuss another common challenge: procrastination. As always, the notes from today's episode can be found on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you next week.